Hello, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Samantha Phil, and this is my presentation on modeling for disaster preparedness. While initially I identified exercise design and development for disaster preparedness as my tech talk topic, as I dived into the research, I focused on what modeling technology exists to assist in training, planning, and responding to disasters. I found this additional information regarding the tabletop exercises to be helpful in answering my initial question, as researchers have taken a formalized approach to tabletop exercises using simulation modeling to better articulate and evaluate disaster response plans for effective disease detection, response, and outbreak management. The discovery phase is typically when you get people together and they talk about what they might do if an event should happen. You figure out what people know and what they assume, and you can go from there. The next level of tabletop exercise is the evaluation and validation, where you measure and evaluate how each part of the system responds to the given scenario. Beyond that, you build to training and further to monitoring and adapting the plans to be the best designed that there could be. Again, Wan and Stewart asserted in their paper on this topic that tabletop exercises for emergency and disaster preparedness are, in fact, event-driven simulations of systems of behavior of social governance, agency, and service systems. In the years since they wrote their paper in 2006, the technology in modeling and simulation has advanced and is more capable than ever to better support and enhance these exercises, be they tabletop or not. However, there's not as much as would be expected as indicated by a 2019 bibliometric analysis that saw that modeling is used much more for training and predictions and not as much for study and research. However, models remain an important tool for preparing risk reduction strategies for known threats . One of the most comprehensive models that I discovered in my research is the SIMIDIS, the Simulation for the Assessment and Optimization of Medical Disaster Management, which consists of three interactive components: a victim creation model, a victim monitoring model where the health state of each victim is monitored and adapted to the evolving clinical conditions of the victims, and the medical response model where the victims interact with the environment and the resources at the disposal of the healthcare responders. These patients are designed from regular trauma databases, which may not be the best pool of information to model disaster victims on. Additionally, this model would require regular updates due to changes in disaster management plans and the environment in which these situations may occur. Additional current uses include planning and response tools with a heavy focus on biological incidents. A specific purpose of many models limits their applicability outside of their standard situation. Models, as we all know, can only generate outputs based on the quality of the inputs, so there are limitations to that as well. And then the results from models must be interpreted by someone and presented to people who can take action prior to the models actually providing usable information. Some of the most common computer simulation modeling methods that are used are typically in three different types. There's system dynamics, which uses equations to understand nonlinear behavior in complex systems. This gives a top-down aggregate, overall aggregate informational view. Agent-based, which simulates the interactions of individual elements within a complex system and typically gives a more bottom-up and granular view of things. As mentioned before, different models have different objectives and end goals depending on who the creator was, what the scenario is, and what it was designed for, as well as different sets of assumptions. So this limits a lot of the generalization or usability outside of its very specific intended purpose for other disaster settings. Overall, model-based systems engineering can assist decision makers by considering disasters from a systems perspective and examining how it behaves in different scenarios. Discrete events are at a very specific point in time versus the system dynamics, which evolve over time. From the FEMA biological response page, I identified 6 of 26 listed resources that were more in line with a modeling versus a database presentation. So as you can see on the slide here, there was a large focus on, because of the bio component, on infectious disease. So we've got a couple of flus and then some about the movement of airborne threats through the Atmospheric Assessment Center. I appreciated the MedCon, which looked at what might be the medical care requirements for a displaced population following a disaster. That was one that was always kind of a question I had in sitting at those tabletops, wanting to know where we were getting our numbers that we were going to have to deal with from. Additionally, you can go to another FEMA resource and look at the emergency support function model and data inventory catalog here. This is what the website looks like, and there are over 300 data sets and models found. Again, not all of them are models. A lot are data sets that just pull up information that might be helpful in planning. You can search by selected keywords, hazard types, or ESF, emergency support function category. Per the website itself, however, this was last updated in 2016, and they had no fire or tornado disasters listed as an option for review. Current uses, as I found in my research, include the HAZU risk management modeling tool, which provides standardized tools and data for estimating risk from earthquakes, floods, tsunamis, and hurricanes. And that's more on a risk factor, not necessarily as much modeling overall. MassEvac 2.0 is a what-if gaming simulation that depicts the impacts upon critical infrastructure and resource consumption during a large-scale mass evacuation. You can change things such as the number of evacuees, the percentage of evacuees seeking minor or major medical care, those seeking shelter, how much water might be needed to be used, vehicle amounts, hospital bed availability, and egress and ingress points. The Advanced Disaster Management Simulation, again, is not truly modeling, but a VR simulation platform used for training purposes. The Stop Disasters game, distributed by the funded by the United Nations, is an online game that essentially uses modeling to teach adults and children how to build safer villages and cities against disasters. So it's a role play modeling game on what they use to build and where they choose to build their homes are going to have an effect when a disaster strikes. Finally, the Emergo train system is a simulation system developed in Sweden, and it can be used for education, training, and full simulations of emergencies and disasters in the attempt to test and evaluate command systems, hospitals, and their ability to deal with a surge capacity. This slide here captures components of current capabilities as well as comparing to a proposed future capability in the world of disaster modeling. A physics-based model is one used essentially as weather forecasting type models, looking at the natural science that occurs surrounding the disaster and what predictions can be made from the physics that impact the occurrence of disasters. Data-driven models are designed by extracting disaster behaviors from observation data from the past and then use machine learning algorithms. The hybrid model attempts to combine these two into one, but is then dependent on the data that they get from those two models overall. The future suggested in a recent article is a very specific hybrid model. But before we get to that specific proposal, I wanted to touch upon a couple other things that are future capabilities or opportunities for growth in terms of modeling for disaster management and response. Based on some of the most recent reviews, comprehensive reviews on the use of modeling for disaster management, it is still evident that there is room for growth in the use of agent-based modeling for natural hazards and disaster management. And making strides to use this modeling for research purposes could help influence policy as research and projects using those technologies can present data as to what is at stake if funding and manning are not supplied in preparation for the disasters. Additionally, with the development of the twinning technology, we could better improve the victim profiles in current models such as SIMDIS, which was previously using a victim creation template known as Victim Base that's developed by a large group of SMEs in disaster medical management, but essentially just took each case patient and developed if this, then that, here's their vital signs. And future iterations of this could use AI or twinning to create victims and better chart their physiological course in response to the treatment received in a disaster situation. Additionally, the digital twinning of the natural environment could provide the services for the systems with physics-based and data-driven disaster models. Finally, this is an outline of the proposed digital twin architecture as described by Yon et al. In their recent article. While this is probably more understandable by somebody in the programming world, it does outline a wider level of data input to better capture a wider variety of disaster scenarios than what is currently available in most situations that are very specific and uniquely focused to either one type of disaster or one region in regards to the data and modeling that can be presented. I hope this gave you at least a better understanding of modeling as a tool overall and some better guidance as to what models exist currently to aid in disaster management and planning. Some of the resources you can see here